All right, let's bring in now Robert Kelly. He's in Busan. He's a professor in the Department of Political Science at Pusan National University. Robert Kelly, good to speak with you, sir. Thanks for being with us here on TRT World. So we've had now the confirmation from the North about this launch. What does that mean for what seems to be becoming an arms race in the region?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think the most important thing is that the North Koreans are now expanding their missile capacity to submarines, right? Submarines would allow the North Koreans much greater range, right? I mean, they could conceivably go and float this thing off the coast of California or Florida or something like that. I think that's one of the reasons why the Americans are sort of so nervous. And also, a submarine allows the North Koreans to have what we call assured second strike. What that means is that if the Americans sort of bombed North Korea very hard and destroyed most of their missiles, they still might have a submarine or two out there floating around with which they could retaliate. And so a submarine dramatically reduces the value for the United States of any kind of a first strike. You may remember in 2017, Donald Trump talked about doing this. It was called the Bloody Nose at the time. An operational submarine-launched ballistic missile would make a Bloody Nose strike substantially more dangerous and probably mean the United States would never do it. And I think that's what the North Koreans are driving for here.
Yeah, it's a change in the calculus, as they say, about how you would approach a fight with North Korea if that was to transpire. What's been the feeling in South Korea of the news of this, Robert? Because, of course, the South just recently tested its own submarine-launched ballistic.
Yeah, that's right. So it looks like the two Koreas are getting into a bit of a missile competition here. I suppose militarily that makes sense insofar as the border has been stalemated for decades, right? I mean, there's an inter-Korean land border, of course, but the militaries are stacked up heavily on both sides of it. It's sort of almost like World War I. You have millions of people on both sides sort of lined up. And so to a certain extent, the missiles, I guess, give you the ability to sort of fly over that land border. In South Korea, generally, the concern about North Korean missiles is lower than it is outside the region, if only because South Korea, of course, has been menaced conventionally by North Korea for a really long time. I mean, the people I think who are most concerned about the North Korean nuclear program are opponents of North Korea further afield, most obviously Japan and the United States, but also to a certain extent China, right? I mean, North Korea has made it clear that it doesn't really like being dominated by China, which has been a possibility in the past. And so North Korea's nuclear weapons program and the missile program give it the ability to sort of push back on all the various countries that don't like it. And that's why, yeah, I think the reports that are particularly focused on the Japanese, who are very concerned because all these North Korean missiles now really put Japan in range.
Yeah, and finally then, Robert Kelly, we seem to be in a slightly different phase of this sort of reaction from the North right now. We normally see reactions and missile tests coming around about the time of the war games. And I would like your opinion on whether those war games should be paused for a couple of years to try and de-escalate tensions. But it seems as if a meeting is being held between the US, South Korea and Japan, and the North are testing weapons then. So what are they trying to portray by showing that sort of muscular military action?
Right. So I think you sort of put your finger on it. I mean, the North Koreans like doing missile tests and other sorts of weapons tests when there are meetings between the US and South Korea and Japan one way or another, or when they have games, the war games, as you said, or there's some kind of, I don't know, like the inauguration of a president or something like that. The North Koreans are sort of notorious for this kind of stuff, sort of like calendar interruption, if you will. And I think the big sort of beef on the North Korean side, I suppose, this year, while you're seeing all the tests, is because for a while there under Donald Trump, the North Koreans had regular meetings with the Americans, and they got the attention of the American president, no less, for 3 meetings. And the Biden administration just doesn't have North Korea that high up on the priority list, right? I think the Biden people think that if they go to North Korea, they're going to get the runaround, that they think Donald Trump got sort of the runaround from the North Koreans who didn't really get anything for his diplomatic efforts, and they're not going to make that mistake. And, Biden's looking at a lot of other stuff through COVID, getting the economy started again, climate change, China. I mean, there's so many other things on Biden's to-do list. And so I think the North Koreans have been pushed down that. And this is their way of sort of banging the drum and saying you have to pay attention to it.
Interesting stuff. I do appreciate that analysis. Professor Robert Kelly from Pusan National University, thank you very much for being with us.